Okay, folks, back again with another vlog. It's day 22. And not much has really happened so far. I'm kind of in a strange sort of state emotionally, but mostly because I didn't get to talk to my grandma today. But I'm gonna try again tomorrow, and hopefully, if I call a bit earlier, unless something has happened. I'm really hoping nothing did happen. But hopefully I'll get to hear from her, at that point in time. But I think the thing I really wanted to talk about today was this thought I kind of, got kind of bouncing around in my head. I was sort of comparing and contrasting a lot of sort of the communities I'm a part of or associated with, and just sort of this general current or idea that I've gotten, sort of a thread that runs through them all, insofar as like what, and I hope this isn't getting like too controversial, but what one might define as sort of a counterculture or sort of socially deviant or so, in the contemporary sense, because I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube, mostly. Some of them going back like several decades, where it was sort of like people from, multiple camps and different ends of the political spectrum, cultural spectrum, etc. Discussing things, and then kind of, seeing sort of the younger versions of those who are considered like, I guess, mainstream or legacy nowadays. And back then they were sort of like, on the fringes, and they moved towards, moved into the, I guess you could say, the mainstream or so. And then the folks who were considered mainstream back then, and how things have changed. And I kind of got this sort of current, or this idea that it's almost like however you cut it, slice it, shape and mold it, whatever, interpret it or look at it, it's sort of like this general idea of like asceticism, however it manifests, culturally, politically, lifestyle wise. That's sort of like being deviant or being the counterculture nowadays. I mean, maybe back several decades ago, a generation ago or a generation or two ago, depending upon what age bracket you fit into, getting involved with whatever was considered like excessive, or not even excessive, but more like pleasure seeking or hedonistic, and sort of chaotic or so, that was like considered counterculture. That was considered like pushing the envelope, or attempting to shift the Overton window in one direction or another. That was considered like like loosening things up. That was considered revolutionary or counterculture, or innovative, or like inventive, or edgy, or something of that nature. And it kind of seems like sort of commenting on the cultural state of affairs that we live in particular in the West, let's say, or Western societies or civilizations or cultures or whatever. It seems like sort of a pulling back or stepping away from things, whether, like, for instance, I'm involved with like the straight edge community, or I'm part of that sort of that mindset, that sort of outlook. Some people might give me a guff for like drinking coffee or tea or something like that, but they say, oh, caffeine is not in line with that or whatever. I may one day, assuming I'm comfortable with it, life wise and all that, I may just give up caffeine entirely. I don't really consider that breaking edge. You can debate or discuss to your heart's content, but it's sort of in terms of like baseline straight edge, no drugs, no alcohol, no tobacco. And by drugs, I mean, like hard drugs, no abusing whatever, you consider like hard drugs, that sort of thing, or using that sort of stuff. Yeah, I'm straight edge. I'm also involved with Nofap, if you haven't seen from this channel. And it just kind of seems like all these sorts of, whether you want to call them movements, communities, life ways, lifestyles that are sort of, sort of, you could say popular with the younger generation, or, sort of making a statement, or starting to, move into critical mass or so. They all have the line of asceticism within them, and it's just kind of interesting to consider that fact that, like, if nowadays, if you want to, like, be sort of, like a young person rebelling against the norms, or rebelling against the older generation, it's like nowadays it's sort of like the way is to, like, not engage in those things, to, be clean cut, that sort of thing. And I just kind of find it interesting. Maybe it's where I live. Maybe that's what's giving me this perspective. Maybe it's sort of, depending upon where you are at. Maybe you're in more of a traditional or conventional area, where the culture is like that. And maybe it still is a sort of case of, like, if you want to be that rebellious teenager, or rebellious young adult, like, edgy or whatever, then it's the whole, almost 60s or 70s, 1960s, 1970s way of rebelling is that's your thing. But at least from where I'm at, it seems like it's almost like you turned a corner, and, I wouldn't necessarily use the word like conservative, because I think like that's kind of like lost its meaning. It's like whatever the opposite end of the spectrum is doing, but minus, a certain amount of time. It's like, they're just kind of like, they're still getting pulled in that direction, but they're not really, like, creating anything. They're not really standing for anything. It's always like, okay, what are they against, sort of thing. And so I wouldn't really want to use that term, but, sort of thought kind of interested me of, like, however it manifests, it can be different for different people, but it's sort of like this thread of asceticism that sort of is, and it's weird because, usually the picture is, the image is, you got the old person who's, stodgy and stuck in the old ways, and they're set in their ways, and they're like, oh, these kids, these youngins these days, they're all doing all this, crazy stuff, and they're out of control, and they're just, they're always messing around, screwing around, that kind of stuff. And it's like nowadays it's almost like it's all these, these young kids these days, they're just, they're not doing, what we did. They're living, clean cut lives, and they're, they're working, real hard or whatever, they're living on the straight and narrow, as the expression used to be. I know the word straight is taken on a different meaning, but, they're so square. These these young kids are so square. Boy, in my day, we wouldn't be caught being square. If we could help it, or we'd rather be dead than be caught being square. And all that. It's like, it's just kind of weird how things have, and interesting how things have changed. That refusing to do that kind of stuff is actually considered more edgy, or rebellious, or deviant. Like, oh, I don't want to put this poison in my body. I don't want to get myself sick. I don't want to go down a path of, self-destruction. So that's considered being rebellious. Like, actually, like, not wanting to, whatever it is, whatever the substance is, whatever the lifestyle decision is, going, nah, I don't want to be involved in that. That's actually being, like, deviant, It's kind of crazy. Or, being rebellious, or being edgy, or taking a different path. What else do I want to talk about? Not really sure what else. I mean, a lot of stuff that's, on my mind other than that topic is just sort of the same old. And, man. I think the other thing I would want to, like, discuss is sort of this sense that I get of, and this sort of outgrowth of sort of the asceticism, sort of idea or discussion, is sort of like, I feel almost this need in order to maintain some sort of mental clarity, or, mental emotional balance or so, to take that asceticism to another level, and just kind of almost withdraw from the news cycle, and being, detached from that. Because so much of what I end up seeing, you open up your laptop, you launch your Internet Explorer, your web browser, And some of it could be shaped by, like, search algorithms or so, where they'll think like, oh, this person looked up X, so therefore they, should throw more of that at them. Give the people what they want. That's their deal. But I just see so much in, at least what is presented as newsworthy, that it's not just that it's garbage or that it's like entertainment. It's almost like attempts at pushing certain narratives and like demoralization, if you will. I don't know, this kind of looks weird to me, for me to be putting my beanie up like that, but it just kind of comes off as sort of like, pushing a certain narrative that's designed to demoralize, at least a certain demographic. And maybe I fall into the demographic, I don't know, but I don't necessarily like what I see a lot of. Luckily, in certain cases, I can kind of filter stuff out. It's almost like looking at it from the Nofap perspective, but trying to like filter out stuff that might be considered, triggering, that might lead you down a path towards, towards a relapse to PMO. Sort of this idea of like controlling what goes into your mind. Because, for instance, if you want to get away from PMO, you gotta, maybe you don't have to, but I think it would behoove one to sort of remove those things from one's purview, that, or one's view, or, from one's life, that would lead you down that path. Similar to a lot of sort of stuff. Like if you want to have mental emotional balance, or to establish like some kind of control over that, or some kind of control over like, your thoughts, which then lead to your actions and so on. It kind of behooves you to remove stuff that will put you in a sort of state of mind where, you might feel or see the world through a certain, lens, or certain set of lenses, or, a certain angle, such that you might potentially be demoralized or led down a certain path of thought and therefore action. It's also interesting to consider whether or not, like, what we are presented with, via these media sources, whether or not that's actually reality, or it's just like a slice of reality. Because again, it's sort of like, I've talked in the past about being concerned with being concerned with that which actually affects you, with it, which is actually important and makes a difference. And again, like, so much of what I think, maybe even I come across, online, or, whatever, through whatever sources I'm going through, it's like, it falls into the category of garbage because it's irrelevant to my context. It doesn't really change my life. It doesn't really do anything for me. And it's just like, it's not something for me to be concerned about. There's no value in it, and we go about this life in this world where there's so many people and groups out there that want us to care about certain things, that it's like, it doesn't do you any good. It doesn't apply to you, like, there are certain things out there that it's not like I'm against them or for them. I don't care about them, like different causes, different groups, different movements, different groups or organizations. I just don't care. And it's not that I'm against them or I'm for this or whatever. I'm just like, I'm looking at it like, and I'm becoming more and more, I think I'm becoming more and more solipsistic as I go on, where it's sort of like, it's being like self-interested. It's like enlightened self-interest, in my opinion. But I've started like asking that question of like, okay, like, why should I care about this? What does this do for me? And I think perhaps that's sort of like, and again, I can relate this back to Nofap. It's like, okay, like, why should I watch pornography? What does that do for me? Does that increase my likelihood of success in these different areas? Does it? Like, no, it doesn't. I really don't think it does. Doesn't mean that I never end up watching it, or that I never end up relapsing to it. I obviously have, but it's like asking that question of like, why, or how does this serve me? And I think that's part and parcel of the Nofap, journey or so. Just as much as it is with straight edge and pretty much anything else in life. How does this serve any of us? Whatever it may be. And kind of following that train of thought, I think this might be like the final point, I'm not quite sure, but I did eventually want to make a video about this. Maybe this will be the video. But I also had, so I had the thought about asceticism as sort of being the, connecting thread between all these sort of contemporary, almost like counterculture, movements or communities. Talking about I guess almost like being self-interested would be the second thing, the benefits of self-interest, or almost like solipsism, like when it comes to dealing with whatever information, current affairs, media content is being sort of tossed your way, and sort of determining whether or not you should allow that, into your your realm of existence. But I think the next thing, maybe the final thing, would just be this sort of idea of I've talked about in the past, not getting caught up in different movements and groups. I would say I'm associated with certain communities, but I'm not committed to them in any sort of political sense or even a cultural sense. I'm not promoting a straight edge lifestyle. I don't necessarily know if I'm promoting Nofap. I definitely see it as a method or a means to an end. I definitely see benefits in being straight edge, just because, health benefits, as well as even financially, you don't end up spending money on, cigarettes and alcohol and all that. Similar to not wasting your time on PMO. But given that I nowadays look at the world and I see sort of the only cause worth pushing for, working for, striving for, is really self-preservation and self-advancement. If you sort of think about it, okay, you look at the world, maybe you see there's some level of what you might call chaos or insanity going on out there, and it's sort of ultimately you are that final bastion of sanity, strength, security, and you have to be that for yourself. And then by extension, if you do become successful enough in life such that you can provide a certain level of security for those, let's say in your family, those you care about, maybe even helping out your friends or so, you have to sort of look at yourself as being that's where it all starts. That security, that success, that strength, has to sort of flow from you, has to be generated by you, from within you, within your sort of sphere of influence, your life, that sort of thing. And that's why pretty much anyone who sort of feels maybe overwhelmed by the world and all the stuff that's kind of going on in it. And again, this is so much of why I'm so obsessed with getting certain things accomplished in my life, so I can actually do this. Whether it's a literal owning a house, out in the country, being all self-sufficient, all of that kind of stuff, being able to weather any of the storms, literal or figurative, that may be on the horizon. That might be a physical manifestation. I don't know if that will be the end result or so, but just this whole idea of being able to be this sort of bastion of strength, and I'm reminded of this song by this band called Asmodeus X. I don't remember the song. What was it called? It starts with an S. Sanctuary. And it's kind of somewhere in there he's basically talking about how he is the sanctuary against all the pain and the chaos in the world, that the singer is, that himself, that he's the one who remains, he's the one who has survived and overcome, and he's, in many ways like kind of carrying on the memory of his friends and his family and those who have gone before him, and he's struggling and you know, and overcoming in order to be that source of like strength, that center, you know, upon which or around which, you know, the universe can sort of grow and expand and revolve and be built, you know. And sort of looking at it like that, like this is why, you know, it's of such great benefit for individuals to be taking care of themselves and be strengthening themselves and doing what's necessary to succeed in life. And whether that's getting, you know, getting that money, working hard at some job, making that money, working hard in school to get the grades you need to get in order to graduate, get that degree, get those certifications and qualifications, or, you know, it's hitting the gym, or if you don't got a gym, you know, maybe you got to work out at home, maybe you got to work out in a park somewhere, you got to do calisthenics or cardio or what have you, manage your diet, manage your, you know, your health, all that kind of stuff. Whatever folks want to say about this, that, or the other, like doing what's necessary to make yourself the best version of yourself possible, so you can be that bastion against whatever chaos or you know, destructive, you know, influences that life or the universe can like toss your way, or toss, you know, towards those who you know, you care about. So you can be, you know, almost like you being in the Night's Watch, you know, like I am the shield that guards the realms of, you know, of men, or, you know, of humans, if you want to like alter the language to be more inclusive, you know, like you are that shield, you are that bastion, you know, you are that source of strength and stability, you know, that rock in the storm, so to, you know, so to speak. And that all, I think, to a significant extent, that sort of is within us, and it's, you know, up to us to do that. And, you know, Nofap, in a lot of ways, is about learning to do that in my mind. You know, it's kind of like learning how to handle the anxieties and the stresses and the, you know, seeming chaos, or even just the uncertainty. You know, things may not be going terrible for you, but just the uncertainty of, okay, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next week, what's going to happen next month, next year, what's that all going to look like? Being able to handle that, learning how to master that, and, you know, learning how to have a plan and execute on it, even if it has to be something that you got to throw together like on a moment's notice, and just being able to, you know, be that kind of person who can take charge of a situation, you know, first and foremost in your own life, you know, be able to see that through to a good outcome. That's like so much of what like Nofap is about to me, because I can, you know, I can compare myself between when, you know, I'm either going into a relapse, have relapse shortly thereafter, you know, in that sort of time period, or when I'm really doing well on Nofap, when I'm knocking down the days and really making progress and such. It's like I see a night and day difference, you know, sort of like I'll be kind of like a mess, literally and figuratively, if I am going into a relapse, have relapsed, you know, shortly thereafter, it's like I'm a mess. When I'm doing well on Nofap, it's like I got it together, I'm focused, I got a plan, I'm executing on them, I'm getting things done, I'm knocking down goals, I'm making progress, you know. And that is so much like the spirit of Nofap to me. Same thing with Straight Edge, same thing with so many things where it's kind of like, okay, I'm gonna take on life and its anxieties and stresses and stressors, you know, I'm gonna take them on head on, you know, I'm not gonna go run and hide, I'm gonna figure this out, you know. And that's so much like the spirit of all this stuff that I'm doing, and I see those who are on a similar journey, you know, what they're doing. This is my interpretation, my understanding. You know, some guys it's all about getting to girls, but again, getting to girls happens afterwards. It happens after you succeed. It's happened after you've gotten it together, built yourself up in some way, shape, or form, such that you have value, you got something to offer, you got some of that, you know, it would attract, you know, the girls to you, or you know, it's kind of like getting your degree so you have something to offer to potential employers, or working out so, I don't know, you can play some sport, or you can maybe you want to go in the military or something like that, you know, or maybe it's required for you to do a certain job, you got to have a certain amount of physical dexterity and strength, you know, whatever it is. But anyways, that's kind of like why, so much of my direction, especially as of late, has been sort of towards, self-preservation, self-advancement, self-interest, not getting caught up in all these other things that, are begging for your attention. Not getting misled into joining some group or movement that you think is like, oh, I'll have to save the world, but then it's like, you become the useful idiot, potentially throw away your future, your life, all the hard work you put into your existence, etc. And working out like mental fortitude and anti-fragility and that sort of thing. So, anyways, what else? I don't know what else. I'm probably just gonna head back in. Well, actually, I need to get some gas in my car. Yeah, it's probably gonna be like this time around it's gonna be like every week at the end of the week I gotta go get more gas for my car. But anywho, I got a little bit of stuffy nose, but nothing major. Yeah, so I think I kind of said my piece, and at this point I'm just sort of rambling. So I will see you folks around. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the likes, the comments, the subscriptions. Thanks for sticking around, and good luck on everyone's journey. And take care of yourselves. So see you. Bye bye.